Hello, this is Hannah and Ali. We're back again. I think you've heard from us a lot this January. We only ran a session last week, but this was another really pressing topic, so we wanted to get this out and shared with everyone. As always, contact me anytime, hannah@receptive.io. And if you want to talk through your specific situation, just give your CSM a shout and they'll be on it, won't they, Ali?
Yes, yes, they will.
Oh, please work. Oh, there we go. So in this session, we're introducing a new idea, the product feedback policy, or the PFP if you want to be trendy. So we're going to look at why you need one of those. It's something we've started putting together with our customers as part of onboarding, but it's been really, really successful. So our plan is to introduce this to everyone in the next week or two, and the webinar is the start of this. Once we've been over that, there's another very popular topic to go over, which is the triage process. So it's essentially workflow best practices, how to triage like a pro in a minute, how to write brilliant status update messages, how to say no to feature requests, and how to deal with product feedback you won't act on for years. So first up, the product feedback policy. So your product feedback policy essentially governs and lays out the whole process that you have for gathering and managing product feedback. One of the hardest parts of building product is keeping everyone aligned. And this is exactly what the product feedback policy does. It tells everyone in your organisation and your customers exactly what your organisation's approach to product feedback is, so expectations are properly set at all times. So a good comparison would be, if you think about support, SLA that you have in place, or an employee handbook, something like that. The best part is it's really, really simple to put together. It takes up very little time. So we'll have a look at a kind of example policy in a second.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that, Hannah. You might be going over this a little bit later, but the great thing about the PFP, I'm going to call it that, hashtag PFP,
okay,
is it's not just for customers like you might think, but it's actually great for, if you're just starting to use Receptive. It can be really helpful to outline at a high level what that process of each feature request is going to be in your account. So it solves a lot of problems in one and creates that alignment from product to the rest of the company internally, as well as then you can take pieces of it and have that be customer facing, as Hannah will cover shortly.
Maybe I will. We'll see. So this is an example product feedback policy. In the resources, I'll actually send the link out to our own as well, which we've done recently. I'll read it through. It's not too long, which is.
I hope you have your magnifying glass handy.
It's not that bad, is it? No. So here at SASAP, we take feedback extremely seriously. We believe that listening to our customers and team members and taking their ideas on board is a surefire way to build a better product. So what that is it's an organisation's stance on feedback. And what that says is we care. You're not just pretending to listen.
And right away, this is a huge way to stand out from the competition because, everybody kind of says this here and there, maybe in the sales process, you might say that, but not only are you saying this, but you're backing it up with a process. And the whole policy really ties it together so that you can actually share customers and your prospects and your internal teams that this is really important.
The next bit is we use your feedback to identify the most important features, ideas, pain points, and opportunities so that you can get more value from our products as efficiently as possible. So again, it's only a sentence, but that tells them, whoever's reading it, whether it's an employee or a customer, straight away how you use feedback. Which, like Ali just explained, means you really are listening. This isn't pretend. The next part is how to give feedback, which is very practical. So in this case, part of what we've got here is all you need to do is navigate to our help menu and select request a feature. Very simple, very practical. The next couple of sections are where, you go over the process once feedback is received. So I'll just take the top line of this one. Any new requests are set to awaiting feedback status so that more people can vote and comment on them. Again, all this couple of short paragraphs is doing is it's very informative. It sets expectation. and it says, again, we take you seriously, which is, you know, a really important point.
And this is really important to outline this, because one of the, you know, biggest mistakes that people make when implementing a feedback platform is, you know, they might over promise the world, and their customers think that every single thing that they submit will make it to like the decision makers table where all the stakeholders are together. And, you know, you might have your VP of product in that meeting, and to set the expectations now that the VP of product isn't going to be reviewing every single request, and that there's a process that needs to go through. And it really puts the responsibility back on them to submit clear, good ideas, and then in order to like get more people to vote on them.
Cool. And then the last section is in some ways like even kind of more vital than the other parts, because this is kind of outlines what the customer or the team member gets in return. So it's saying, in return for you giving us this really valuable data that's going to help our organization grow, you're going to get all these benefits. So again, I'll share these slides so you don't have to read it all now. Some examples might be, our feedback portal always has the most up-to-date information about our products and what we're building next. So you're giving back, you're saying, this is where to go to see the status of all your requests. And actually, once decisions are made in our road mapping meetings, you'll get an instant notification on anything you voted on or subscribed to. So it's what we talk about all the time. Product feedback isn't going into a black hole for your customers or your team. It's getting looked at, and then they're getting communicated back to, which helps build a really healthy relationship.
That's my favorite part of the whole thing, is that, you know, in those meetings, that's when the updates are made in Receptive. And so your customers know that if they reach out, this will be covered in a second with another question, but your customers know just from this that, you know, reaching out to your support team or your customer success team isn't necessarily going to give them any additional information, because they know that Receptive is the most up-to-date product data they can find. The
go-to data area, I guess.
Thanks to the PFP.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm not going to read all this to you, but just as a side note, it is quite useful to keep an updated frequently asked questions section to address anything that comes up. So some example questions. These are real questions taken from customer policies with permission. One is, how long will it be before the product team reviews my idea? Another question they've been asked a lot is, my request hasn't been reviewed yet and I submitted it over 6 months ago, what can I do? So if you do get any questions around that, just document them, keep them in your support doc.
And definitely check out, we have this all listed out in a support doc. This response to this question is really, really key, because a lot of times people will say, you know, I submitted this idea, why hasn't it been reviewed yet? But it's at the bottom of their priority list. So take this as an opportunity to say, you know what, actually that's not what your Receptive dashboard says. So let's make sure those are updated. And then you can also give them the power to be a little bit more proactive, ask them for their additional use cases, and that really puts pressure on the product team if they're in there commenting and adding that feedback. So you're kind of giving them power. When with that question, you can tell they felt a bit helpless.
When it comes to publishing your feedback policy, there's lots of different ways you can do this. Again, like with everything, this is all written up. And in fact, we've got a template for your product feedback policy, which I'll share. So you can kind of copy and paste. It's very Receptive specific. So you can, it's not copyright, it's ready to go. We've produced it for you. So please do use it. And then when it comes to sharing your feedback policy, this is a definite must. Just pop it in your knowledge base if you've got a support area, anything like that. Secondly, I think blog posts go down really nicely, as does kind of giving a shout out on in your social networks about your feedback policy. I think it's a brilliant selling point for a lot of companies. Really puts you ahead of the competition. We've got our blog post going out next week, maybe.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's so huge though, because if you think about how many people say, "Oh, we value your feedback" as part of like a standard response to feedback. Yeah. But this is like, we're actually walking the talk. So
you're not a robot. It's a very robotic thing to say, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like, we value your feedback.
We're putting the life back into that statement, I think, with the PFP. Oh my gosh, I have to stop saying that.
I'm going to tweet that. Another place to share the feedback policy is with new customers and new team members. Popping it in we've got ours in our like employee handbook. So if we have new starters, anything to do with feedback is in there with a link to the policy as well. And finally, this is my favourite one actually. put a link to your feedback policy in the awaiting feedback status in Receptive, which we'll show you in detail in a second. So in summary, a product feedback policy it's really, really easy to put together. In fact, Ali, you might have who's the go-to person, do you think, for helping write it?
Whoever is on, watching this webinar is really, really like the obviously you care about the process and you feel the pain in some way, whether that's pressure from customers or team members. So I would, have your stakeholders watch this webinar, get them on board, or maybe do a short, version of it without Hannah and I's ridiculous jokes.
Terrible jokes.
Or terrible jokes. But it's the same process as something like your product decisions. Like you're gonna need the stakeholders to be on board. You need your product team to kind of be okay with the process that you've outlined, and then get the feedback from your customer success and your support teams in order to finalize the details.
Cool. That's pretty much what we did.
Yeah.
I think Dan in product wrote it.
Yeah.
Went to customer success team.
Yeah. He actually took the template because we've put that together, and it made it really easy for, the product team is so busy. So that made it really, really easy to just kind of put in the customizations so that it has your like unique spin on it. And then just check from like the leads of each team, and then you can publish it.
Second part is, just to summarize again, it really sets out what your customers and co-workers can expect when it comes to product feedback. And that's a brilliant way. We hear this is a huge pain point, product teams. It gets the pressure off the product team because everyone knows what to expect, and it keeps everyone aligned. So it's a huge, huge time saver and a sanity saver as well, especially for product folk. Mm-hmm. So there's just one more section to this webinar today, which is about how to triage like a pro. So product feedback policy is a really important part of this. It's about getting the process down. So we're going to hop over to product in a second. We're going to look at how to triage requests in a minute, setting expectations, and then using your reports. So we did a webinar on reports last week, but the important point here, I guess, is that your reports are like the go-to in your Receptive account. You can actually leave the triaging for a while and it's fine, especially if you've got Receptive in place to start creating that dialogue and give customers a separate channel for feedback. That sounds a bit upside down, but Ali, you'll be really good at kind of explaining that in a second. So let's hop into some product. If I can get the slides away. Right, so in our kind of demo account here, so 95% of new requests should take no more than a minute to triage, and it's really simple. So first off, make sure you know who's responsible for the task. It can sometimes be a few people based on things like the module. You're really familiar with multi-product, aren't you, Ali? Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, definitely. So if you have multi-product set up, or if you don't, make sure that if you do set them up, like basically you can break down your action list just so a product manager can come in and just look at the actions that are related to him or her and come up to this icon up here, and they can see all the latest comments and requests that haven't been reviewed yet.
Cool.
And that's filtered down to the product level.
So to triage in a minute, all you do is go to browse, go down here and select not reviewed, and this shows you all of the items that haven't been reviewed in your account yet.
And that also is filtered down by the product level, so you can use this or that's perfect.
Cool. Have a quick look through, like you can go in, have a read, you can merge stuff together really easily. You can, if you haven't got auto tagging set up, or if there's additional tags you want to add, you can go ahead and do that. But to be honest, I would simply move it to awaiting feedback. So go in here, go to awaiting feedback and change the status. And what this does is, before you've even looked at it in too much detail, you're saying, hey everyone, we're looking for feedback on this. And then you can vote on it, comment on it, reprioritize it, and then that lets you gauge the demand really easily without wasting any time doing anything, basically. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, what I always say is, I think it's triage now and digest later. So this isn't the time to look at in detail at a request and decide whether it's a good idea. You kind of let your demand build up so that then you can make those decisions later.
That's genius. I like that.
Yeah.
Triage, know, and digest later. That's so true. So in the status message as well, this is where you can add the link to your product feedback policy right here. And you can set these custom responses in your account. So if you just go to manage, you can see here when you've got something set to awaiting feedback, this is the message that you can use by default. And again, it's just all about saving time. It's thanking people for giving you the feedback, telling them what the next step is. So this request is now waiting feedback so that we can gauge demand from other customers and gather use cases. And then it refers back to the product feedback policy. So again, they just understand the next steps. And that is it. That's all you need to do at this stage. And you don't even have to start doing that from day one. Do you want to explain that a bit more? Because I think that's a really interesting point, that Receptive can be like gathering the data without you having to worry about it.
There's a couple of points I want to make on here, actually. So first off is like what Hannah just said. You don't really have to worry about. You're not in a rush in order to triage. Like you don't have to do this every day. You don't have to do this every week. As soon as a customer submits a new request, that's going to be available for other customers to vote and prioritize. So basically the account is just running itself. Duplicates are stopped at the point of submission. And it really puts, like the customers have that power. The other thing I was going to mention is you may be pushing back on the idea of, not spending a lot of time tagging or deduplicating. If you do have any duplicates come through, like it's okay if those slip through. You don't have to have a perfectly, all your data doesn't have to be perfect and Receptive, because what we want to focus on is those high priority items. So again, you're putting the pressure back on the customers to submit clear requests or to add their use cases to existing requests. Otherwise they're kind of going to be not penalized, but their requests won't get to the top of the reports if they're not putting the effort in on their side as well.
And one thing we're doing to actually speed this process up even more is got some nice checkboxes now, because you can send requests out to customers. That was new release last week. But we're also very close to releasing bulk editing of requests. So if you do have a set of requests or ideas that you have in that you want to set to awaiting feedback just to gauge demand before you do anything, you'll be able to do it all in one go, which is music to a lot of people's ears. Top of our list.
Are you going to mention that request?
Ooh.
There is
yes.
There is a request so if you're a Receptive customer, you'll have access to our account. And there is a request in our account to basically automate this whole triage process. And we would love your feedback on that. So we can, I think it's ID number 17892 if you just go in and search for that, or you can search for automate the triage process. We'd love to hear your feedback on that, and it would be really cool if it came from the webinar as well. So basically, we'd be able to take away this whole process, and everything kind of goes into awaiting feedback by default, and we give your customers extra insight into your roadmap based on what kind of feature they submitted.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
The idea.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So send us your ideas on that.
Again, I'll pop that in the resources if you're frantically trying to scribble it down. So just to hop back to the keynote for a second, the second part of the process, so once you've done that initial triage, is just another note on setting expectations. So there'll always be things that you need to say no to, and that's actually a kind of really positive thing, because if you're using Receptive and you've got your product feedback policy, it's inevitable that part of the process is saying no. So making statements like, we're never going to build this, or nice idea, it could be years. You need to protect your product. You can't make great decisions by building everything for everyone. So have your feedback policy in place, review your product strategy at all times, and just create some good status messages. It's amazing how saying no can become a really kind of powerful thing if it's done in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So just got a couple of really good support docs on this actually. Again, I'll send them out. One gives you these are some kind of like real response ideas, again, used with permission, of course. Some nice status messages you can use. There's some nice examples in declined here, so I'll read a couple out. You might get the case where you decline something because your product already does it. So good news, you can already do this. Just go to and then pop the link in. We'll close this one off. If you've got any questions, just reply. Or like the top one, I think we're going to stick with the current status stages for the foreseeable. I can see a potential customization of the stages, but if we do that, it would probably be best to have them completely configurable. We have to balance that against it being simple to explain and manage our product. So if you explain things clearly, people really value that you're protecting your product and keeping the quality really high. Most of your customers will know that building everything is a terrible idea.
Not saying no almost reminds me of if you're watching like a TV show in black and white, and then you start like adding custom responses straight from the product team, and it almost like turns that TV show into color, because you're actually, it takes it from being a bland experience and turns it into something that seems like real life. And I think that having, you know, more specific responses and actually saying no once in a while is going to be really good for like your engagement and for how customers actually see your company and your product team.
But part of the reason you can say no, of course, is because you're keeping your customers updated on what you are actually working on. And it's really easy for them to just track all of that in your Receptive account. And we'll send this article out as well, how to say no to requests. Again, some really nice example status messages that you can use, and good reasons as well, like low demand, edge case scenarios, or, you know, you might be working on a future release that'll mean it won't be required anymore. Just a few examples there. Cool. So this is a question we got in before the webinar, which is a great one. We get endless good ideas in Receptive, but many are niche things that we wouldn't actually do for years to come if we ever get to them at all. We currently don't like to decline ideas unless they've had no votes for a very long time. Then our Receptive gets cluttered and more difficult to manage. Maybe this is okay, but would be curious to hear other thoughts on it. So Ali and I, we actually talked about this, didn't we, before the session. First off, like, make sure you know who your customers are and who you're targeting. If you're getting a lot of ideas from people who aren't a good fit for how you want to build your product, and you don't see an opportunity there either, then it's definitely best to change the status to declined. And like we were just saying, just explain why. If there are ideas that you want to hang on to that might be good at some point, decline them. Say, we're not going to do this for years, but we're going to keep a check on it, and just use the tags. You might tag it with 2020 or review in a quarter, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then in your reports, it'd be really, really easy to find. So I think this just comes down to getting the status messages set right, understanding kind of who you're building the product for, and putting ideas aside if they don't quite fit today.
Yeah, and on that note, I think it's really important to focus in on, you know, the requests that are coming from the right people. And a really easy way to do that, we have a customer, one of our bigger customers is really focused on mature customers. So they want to know, they really want to focus on and build for their customers that are really mature with their product, and you know, they haven't just started with their product. They've used a lot of different aspects of it, and the way they've done that is they've actually tagged up like 10 or 15 of their ideal customers, and their more mature customers, to see, just to segment that out and see what they've requested. So check out the reporting webinar if you're not sure how to do that. It's really easy to see what that segment wants, and that'll help you kind of focus in and not worry about the clutter so much.
Yeah, definitely. So just to summarize, 1 minute triage process: getting your requests in, scan them over, but move them to awaiting feedback to gauge demand. Make sure you've got your status messages set up. So again, that just saves loads of time if you've got good messages ready to go. And then you can just crack on with using reports. So like Ali just said, we've got a really good reporting webinar which gives you a deep dive on the functionality. But we'll do a quick look in product. So reports are obviously over here, and from people kind of voting on things and prioritizing them. At high level, you can simply go in and have a look what the top priorities for customers are versus your internal teams versus your prospect smart list, which is data you've got coming in from your sales team. And then, like Ali mentioned, you can get into the really advanced stuff, which is actually really easy. It is advanced, but it's very simple. You can segment down to industry, like strategy, if you've got strategic customers. It really is simple. So yeah.
there's some really good, if you haven't signed up for the Receptive Launchpad yet, it's an email series, and I think like the 6th email, they're really short lessons, so there's 10 of them, but I think the 6th or 7th email is about advanced road mapping, and it gives some really specific instructions or guidelines on how to figure out which advanced reports to use. If you're just starting out, going through the top 3 smart lists is perfect, like starting out with the top 5, something like that, but you can really get into the details of the data. So we'll add a link to that. There's a lot of links coming your way.
It's all right. It's all organised in one place.
We've done it all for you.
We've been very organised. Like I said, I'm not going to go all through reporting because we did that last time. I will send you a link. Cool. So just to summarise that section, triaging requests, it actually saves you weeks across teams. I think we get worried, don't we, that it's a big, scary process, or it's going to take a lot of time, and it honestly doesn't. If you get your status messages set up and you've got that little process, it just takes a few minutes to
take the thinking out of it. Set up the status messages in advance and just do it, and
then just use your reports. I think just
they're your superpower.
If you want a superpower, you might not, I don't know. They really are. Like, you've got a prioritized list there from every segment of your customer base. You can look at the top priorities from your sales team. You can look at the top requests from enterprise customers in Germany. They really are amazing at helping you decide what should get onto your product roadmap, because at the end of the day, we all have to have everyone working on things that really move the needle and align with the strategy of your company, not random features that no one really cares about. And as always, yay, the most popular feature on these webinars, just a little kind of update from the last 2 really on things we've got coming up in 2018. So as with Receptive, it's often surprising what comes to the top of your list, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's a couple of requests that we're building right now, which are incredibly important for a large group in the customer base. One's bulk editing, like we mentioned earlier, bulk editing of requests that come in. End user image upload. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Very, very popular.
People getting very excited.
And valuable.
So allowing your end users to upload images to requests is coming. That's in building as well. And then I guess a bit more strategic development for us is something called Insight. I don't know. Is that the name? I don't think that's the name.
I don't know.
It's not very innovative.
I don't know what the name is. I don't know if there's a name yet.
We'll call it Bob. We'll have to think of it.
Yeah, we'll
think
of
it.
To sort that out later.
So Insights is like reporting times a bazillion. It's going to be amazing. Loads of like ROI stuff, how much time Receptive saving you across teams, which requests coming in line with which strategic initiatives you've got in your organization, being able to do trend analysis, mapping customer wants against what the sales team are requesting. Loads of stuff. That project's probably going to run throughout the year, actually, with the first phase being more around kind of ROI, so you can see where Receptive is really helping you.
It's really going to bring your metrics to life and put a story behind the details in there, and allow you to change the date range as well. I know that's really important to a lot of our customers.
It sounds really late, but it's really, really important.
It's very important.
It really is. It's they're the best.
So
ones.
Again, on any of those things, they should be on the list view roadmap. So just jump in there and add your feedback, or if you're excited about it, like jump in there and say, "Yay, we're excited! This is building," just so our product team knows. And gets that feedback.
Cool. So I think we've covered everything. As always, loads of resources coming your way. It's all in one place for you, and you can review this recording at any point as well.
We would love to see your PFPs when you publish them. So be sure to send those over to Hannah at Receptive.io or Ali, ALY at Receptive.io.
Or tweet it at us.
Or tweet it at us. That would be even better.
Get it out there. Receptive.io, isn't it? At Receptive.io is the Twitter handle. Because like we're explaining, it's something you really want to shout about, because it's a really cool thing to have.
Cool.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.